on a number of the allegations that you in particular, Mr. Banks, have made about them. And perhaps I should just read a few of those out and then ask you to comment on them. You said that their submission to the Electoral Commission was, I quote, full of lies and misrepresentations. You said that Vote Leave are lying and misrepresenting the situation, that these people are jokes, that he, in particular that's Matthew Elliott, wants to be Lord Elliott of Loserville, and that he, Dominic Cummings, is a liability and a danger to both Leave campaigns.
I think you saw his evidence last week.
So
I think you meant to ask that question.
To put it mildly, most of those, and I won't comment on the comment you've just made, do require a bit of substantiation, and I'd be grateful if you'd provide it now.
So which one would you like me to start with first?
Go ahead with whatever.
I think in terms of the Electoral Commission, I think...
Could you speak up? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Do I need to lean forward, or you can
That's
hear me? Yeah,
fine.
sorry. Yeah. In terms of the Electoral Commission, our view of life was always that the Vote Leave bid was the kind of establishment bid, if you like. When we looked at the bid we put forward, which was the full backing of UKIP, Leave.eu had something like nearly 1 million public supporters signed up into it. We had all sorts of different groups representing a very large range of opinion in the Eurosceptic world. And really Vote Leave was a Tory campaign with a few little additions to it. So it didn't really represent the wider Eurosceptic view. And that's how we saw it.
Okay, but that doesn't take us to full of lies and misrepresentation.
Well, I mean, their submission had
What
things
were the
like...
lies?
Well, as a good example, we funded BRExit, the movie, which we spent nearly £45,000 putting money into the movie. They quoted it in their submission. They had one conversation where they basically said, if Mr Farage or UKIP are even involved in the project, we won't be involved in it. So that was put in their submission as a fact that they had, helped BRExit, the movie, to commission the movie and do those sorts of things, where we had actually, pretty well funded 50% of it.
Well,
as one example, I can give you lots of different examples.
I think rather than delay the committee now, it might be helpful if you could set those out in writing and provide them to the committee.
Absolutely, no problem.
With any substantiating...
I mean, there were things like...
With any substantiating...
Yeah, there were things like, for instance, Richard North, who we don't necessarily agree with, but he violently objected to the Vote Leave position, and it was quoted in the document that they had communicated with him and worked with him. Well, we know that not to be the case.
Now, when you say that the process... I haven't actually quoted all the quotes, by any means I have in front of me, but perhaps I'll supply one more. You have said of the Electoral Commission's decision, I quote, "We have decided to show the public how this process was stitched up."
Yeah.
So that seems to be an allegation not about lies or misrepresentation by Vote Leave, but about the conduct of the Electoral Commission.
Well,
I'd be grateful if you could substantiate that.
We contemplated a judicial review based on a number of facts, but one of which was there are 8 commissioners of the Electoral Commission, 3 of which excused themselves because they were conflicted. We don't know the reasons why they were conflicted, but one of the commissioners actually voted on the decision that had a conflict relating to Vote Leave, but because they didn't have enough commissioners to form a quorum, they actually allowed someone to vote that was conflicted. And in the business world, that would be out of the question and pretty reprehensible.
Well, you're subject to, we may decide to take as subject to parliamentary privilege evidence on that point as well. It's a very serious allegation you're making about the Electoral Commission, whose task is to ensure the highest standards in our elections. I have their documentation in front of me here.
Can I make a second point?
Yes, of course.
Well, the second point was that a couple of the prominent Vote Leave supporters actually communicated via the internet. They won the designation 2 days before the Commission were actually due to announce the result, and I think one of the people that's a very senior member of it actually tweeted out, "Congratulations, Vote Leave, you've won the designation."
Sorry, a very senior member of
Vote Leave, yeah.
Of
the
not a
Vote
senior
Leave.
member of the Electoral Commission.
No, not of the Vote Leave campaign. We then wrote to the Electoral Commission by email saying, "What the hell's going on? You're meant to be announcing this Thursday." They then brought forward their decision by a day because they realised the news was out there. And it was clear that the Electoral Commission had either communicated the result prematurely to Vote Leave or otherwise. But it doesn't give much faith in the confidence when you've got a date where you announce it and then the news is out 2 days beforehand. So call it a stitch up, call it what you like, but in my book, if there's a process, you stick to it.
It just seems to have been an extraordinary fratricidal war, tension here between these two groups, bearing in mind you agree on so much.
We agree on quite a lot. Yeah, there's some things we don't agree on. But if you look at the competition, I would say it's a good Thatcherite principle, sorry for the Labour members of this committee, that competition is good. We raised nearly £9 million for the campaign. We wrote to over 10 million people individually. We sent out leaflets to a balance of another 11 million. So when you talk about the government's in leaflets, our campaign has nearly communicated with the whole country. So we raised £9 million. I think the competition spurred both sides on. That doesn't leave aside the feeling that it was an establishment group that felt they had an entitlement to run the race, and it just become a Tory party cartel effectively, with a couple of add-on players.
And it was for that reason, therefore, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're saying that your group was unable to form an alliance and a unified group to make the bid.
We wrote 5 times to Vote Leave to suggest that we should come together, and it was benefiting nobody to have this continuing row. Obviously strong personalities involved in it, but I believe that, particularly with Mr Elliott and Mr Cummins, they believed it was their kind of God-given right to run this campaign, and no one else could be involved. If you take Vote Leave back to its roots, it was formed out of Business for Britain, and the original concept was this was a group that was going to be led by businessmen. Now it's led by politicians, mainly Conservative politicians, as I say, that are trying to marginalise other people in the Eurosceptic world, particularly UKIP and others. So you can understand